Okay, so it is my pleasure to introduce Andreas Schriefl, who is with the company eMurmur, and will be presenting using AI to improve heart murmur screening 4X. So please, welcome. I have no mic. That should work. Sure.
Right, welcome. Speaking of accents, I'm Austrian, so hopefully we don't need an AI layer between us for you to understand my English. Yes. So, number one cause of death globally is heart disease. The number one screening procedure for heart disease is auscultation. If you put this into context of your normal visit to your primary care physician, usually things get measured. Someone measures your height, they measure your weight, you give blood, you get a range of values that tell you are you within normal or outside of normal. When it comes to your heart, someone would listen to your heart with the stethoscope and they nod or they don't nod. And what they're trying to assess is they're trying to hear a murmur, a heart murmur, among other things. And what they're trying to assess is, do you need to be referred to an expert? That procedure, it's called cardiac auscultation, and it fundamentally hasn't changed in over 200 years. It's still 100% dependent on the primary care provider, and the accuracy rates among primary care providers are between 20 to 30%. So there's lots of data on this issue, on this topic, and what happens practically is there's failed detections or delayed detection. Think about an elderly population with onset of heart valve issues that are being detected too late. False referrals, about 70% of our referrals to echocardiograms are unnecessary. And we really have no hard identity. What do I mean by that? If you think about, or if I got my cholesterol levels this year, I'll know what was the history of that. Similar with blood. When it comes to our heart, we don't have that. We don't know has something progressed for the worse over time. So that whole area of cardiac auscultation is now being disrupted mainly by two drivers. One is that machine learning is entering that arena, and the other one is the onset of electronic stethoscopes, which are becoming more popular, which allows us now for the first time to get your heart sounds and analyze them digitally, something that wasn't available before electronic stethoscopes were available. So we at eMurmur have spent 5 years developing a set of algorithms that can take your heart sounds, analyze them, and determine if you have a heart murmur or not. So practically speaking, it's very similar to what you're used to from your standard auscultation. So a user would auscultate you with an electronic stethoscope. We would record 15 to 20 seconds of your heart sounds together with your age and where it was recorded. We send it to the cloud for analysis, and within 2 seconds, we have the result coming back. So what are the results? We get the heart rate, we get the presence of a murmur, and if you do have a murmur, we determine is it innocent, meaning it's benign, nothing to worry about, or is it pathological, meaning you should be referred for an echocardiogram. So this technology can be used to screen in, screen out, or to create heart identity over time to get longitudinal data. So I was asked to tell a bit the story of how we came about this. So we spent 5 years developing this, have done multiple clinical trials, and it was our goal to create something that has been validated blindly in prospective studies. And I heard other speakers, they talk about trust in AI, and it's one of the hurdles we have to overcome as well. How do you know it's performing as it should be performing on a new set of patients? It's one thing to self-validate using leave or not cross-validation on your own training data. It's another set to give the technology away into clinic in a blinded fashion and see what comes out of it. So we have done this, and we found overall that we are now at a level of sensitivity specificity between 80 to 90%, which is that of your expert cardiologist, which in my opinion, in our opinion, makes this a feasible application in a primary care setting. So in terms of advantage, what was required to get to that level? Initially, we started by looking at heart sounds only, and we found that we couldn't really get past 65 to 70% accuracy. And we learned that we had to work with cardiologists, with your experts throughout their trials to not only get the sounds, but get their interpretation and their understanding of why they would classify heart sounds as benign or pathological. So with this iterative process and the multiple studies that we've done that allowed us to build that gold standard database that was labeled well enough for us to train the AI to reach the level of performance that we have reached now. So that's where the advantage comes in, and I'm going to wrap up with those points. So we have now received this year FDA clearance and CE marking. So it's a Class 2 medical device, Class 2 in Europe. it can determine presence of a murmur, and if you do have one innocent or pathological, we have proven in blinded prospective studies expert level accuracy, and it's a complete end-to-end solution. So that's important, that the whole idea was to have a tool that doesn't require a physician to use it, but something that can be put into anyone's hands who knows how to handle a stethoscope. So it could be a pharmacist, it could be a nurse, it could be your nurse practitioner. So with that, I invite you to ask questions. Thank you.
Should we give Slido a moment to shine? Have any of you submitted questions through Slido today? And did it work? Oh, there's one. Here we go. So let's use that from now on. You can wait a few moments
Sure.
and choose the one you'd like to answer.
Well, I can start right here.
You're like a politician.
Yeah, no, it's okay, it's okay. So non-compliant, I'm not sure what's meant by non-compliant patient use here, but where we see this happening is in the front, it's a frontline screening level. So normally you don't go to cardiologist for your checkup. You just check, you're with your primary care provider, you're with your nurse practitioner. I think 25% of the states is now done, primary care is not done by nurse practitioners in the states. So we see it at that level, and it's at that level where we know the accuracy is low. And what I've mentioned before is one piece of the puzzle. So what's available to the primary care provider now is that guidance, that the expert analysis, but they can also store all of this together with their own findings. They can save this online or share it with your experts to do a remote reading as well. So there's different scenarios how this can be used, and that would be one of them.
Thank you. I'll have to stop you there,
Oh.
unfortunately, yeah.
Okay.
So thank you very much.